You can come in, you know. Yeah. I mean, there's no place to sit, but you're welcome to stand over here. Oh, I didn't know there were so many of you. Go out, go out. My friends, during this song, I'm gonna make a toast. If you wanna join in this community moment, raise your hand and be counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. 22, I think we're at. 23, 24. Well, you know the first sign that you're gonna have to leave your neighborhood is when vintage clothing shops show up. Nothing worse for a neighborhood than poor people with style. And then you know what they're gonna do? They're gonna hang out in cafes. They're gonna talk about making movies and, you know, writing songs. Then they're gonna make the neighborhood really cool, and then the housing value's gonna go up, and then they're all gonna get the push. You can't keep up with the housing market? Well, off you go. When faced with such stupidity, when faced with a system that is so backwards and broken and based on lies, there is something so pure and so good about life that it can give us the hope to carry on. To the lips of your lover, to the simple act of kissing, may it get you through the darkest of times. To kissing.
I was actually a school teacher for about 10 years. I taught French as a second language, teaching the unteachable to the unteachable. I taught about 10,000 classes and I got bored. But here we go then. So I got interested in real estate. Started with flipping properties, buying a house, renovating it, and selling it. And I got the taste for real estate.
Really small bathroom.
What I see in Toronto right now is a superheated market.
So we got bedroom number 2 here, and it's all bed.
And I was seeing increases of prices of 20% in a month.
There's a beautiful entertaining space. So it'll be very attractive to the buyers. You can see yourself out here entertaining, having a quiet time. Dinner out here, barbecue back here. An essential part of staging. Don't miss the cat. Meow.
Again, I get the question as a realtor, you know, what percentage over the list price will it sell for? And the answer is no idea. So you're coming in, it's okay. Somebody's not gonna go, ew, ugly pictures. However, if you put something beautiful in, so I've got some traditional stuff, you know, photography. For some reason, I put this one in the bathrooms. And this makes it just beautiful and somehow intimate. I don't know, I think it contributes to that feeling of your home.
And my job is to go around the world and investigate different housing issues and sort of see how are people faring with respect to the right to housing. But maybe you could tell me a bit about how you came to needing to have a rent strike.
Well, for me personally, I have a mouse problem, I have a cockroach problem, I've got things that need to be repaired in the building.
They withhold services. They run you around in circles. They frustrate you. You get fed up. You just want to leave. But where are we going to go? The rent situation all over Toronto is the same way.
very
It's,
well
it's
could be.
eviction by another name.
Yeah. And have you had any response from Metcalf yet? I guess it's harassment. Yeah.
Harassing, yeah. Barb had a sign on her. She had a sign on her balcony about the rent strike, and they threatened to evict her.
I'm giving you this notice because I want to end your tenancy. I want you to move out of your rental unit by such and such date. Reason: I believe that you or someone living with you has committed an illegal act.
N6 is serious criminality.
Yeah.
Oh my
drugs.
For legal action.
Guns and drugs is an N6.
Oh my gosh.
They came after her with the hardest,
Oh my
hardest
God. It's
category they could.
Yeah. So this was based on the banner?
Yeah. You know, we're not bad-mouthing them or anything.
It just says May 1st rent strike.
Yeah.
They own 19 buildings in the area, and that's their plan for all the buildings, is to get people like us out. The neighborhood's getting gentrified. If you know, familiar with Liberty Village, it's moving. It's come right up to King and Dufferin, and this is it's only one direction into our neighbor, and we're in the way.
Oh my God, you're so loud.
All right, you sure?
No, we're splitting it.
Yeah, you don't need to open two. Did you shake it?
Yes, I shook it. That is not half.
Okay, whoever pours it, the other person has to drink
No,
it.
I'm putting some back.
Okay, that's gonna have a big disaster. I'm getting out of the way. You guys better go.
How's it going?
Fine. So that chart, did you go directly to the chart?
Yeah.
In the Greater Toronto Area, for example, in the last 30 years, housing prices have increased by 425%, whereas in a similar 30-year period, average family income has only grown by 133%. So something else is in play, and clearly it's not the economic fundamentals, as you can see from the above graph.
So are you going to send us around or what?
No, I don't know. I would need to check the numbers first, but it's pretty, I mean, it's pretty grim. I think we are at an incredibly urgent moment. The extent to which we're seeing urbanization collide with stagnant wages and a lack of affordability is unprecedented. So you have like poor people really struggling now, like never before. But then you also have the middle class unable to afford to live in cities and provide the services that are necessary for a city. I don't want to overuse the word crisis, but it suggests a crisis. So then we start asking, wait a second, who's going to live in cities? Who are cities for? It's not rocket science, you know? What do we think people need to have a dignified life? And it's clear that decent housing, affordable housing, is one of those things. And it's supported by international law.
Kennedy Heights family is just hours away from learning whether or not they can stay in their home or be forced out onto the streets.
Problem? Housing is gobbling up more of shrinking paychecks.
People in 59 out of 102 countries worldwide would need to save their yearly income for at least 10 years in order to buy a house in their country.
There are two histories, we might say, that intersect today in that space that we call the city. And one of them is a familiar issue, which is for which we have used the term gentrification. When I hear people today saying it's gentrification, one reaction, an ironic reaction, is if only. It's much deeper than that. It's much more foundational.
Con todo lo que esta casa se desniveló esta casa. El piso se fue hacia abajo, está desnivelado todo.
We're in the home of an older woman.
It's like she's living on top of the...
Who is being pressured to abandon her home because it's in the midst of this big new development. Here there was a hospital. It's been demolished. And it was demolished to make way for condominiums, luxury condominiums, and they don't even own this land. I've heard that there are many units standing vacant already, luxury condos and lofts, because no one in Valparaiso can afford to buy and purchase any of these units. So these developments are clearly not for the people of Valparaiso.
Y ellos, como inmobiliaria no lo han pedido permiso. Pusieron nombre Parque Barón y resulta que volaron todos los árboles. Era un jardín del Edén. Olivos, almendros, ciruelos. Todos los niños, todos entraban a jugar y volaron todos los árboles, no hay nada. El Parque Barón, la palabra parque, es cero.
Well, this is what I'm seeing happening around the world. The buying up of land, the displacement of the poorest people, and the putting up of luxury units that are not actually for the people who live in the community.
Because of the massive buying of land, of rural land, more and more people have to leave the rural areas. They come to the cities. You can see that urban land becomes precious land. Then that earlier gentrification story is sort of an older history.
Thank you very much. I was very proud to live in Notting Hill. When you go somewhere, where do you live? Oh, Notting Hill, because they've heard about the film or whatever. And yeah, Notting Hill. The thing I like about this area is the community. You know, your friends are from all faiths, all colours.
There's one word for this community, it's a family. It's actually a family because even if we don't know each other, we know each other by face.
See me here!
I was born just 5 minutes from here, and in the 70s and 80s and 90s, I've seen the whole area change. You know, some pop stars and people moving into the area because they like the vibe. The vibe is really cool. You know, people who've seen the film, they come over from all around the world. They want to see where the Blue Door is. They want to see the bookshop. It became a very, very trendy place to live. And then the new school and new leisure centre, that's going to attract the wealthy people to come down to the area. And then they start buying up properties. Don't need to live there. But, you know, because it's a fantastic investment for them. Better than putting it in the bank.
So our fourth stop on the highlight tour of London kleptocracy properties. These two properties are worth perhaps £20 million each. I believe Mr. Chatter paid something in the region of 40 or 50 million pounds for it. If you could get a whole one of these, it would be 30 or 40 million pounds. And nobody lives here and nothing is happening to this thing. So it's become a dead spot in London. There was newsagents, there were pubs, there were a couple of restaurants, but the community itself has evaporated.
Slowly, slowly, you know, people are forced out, and they don't understand that it's happening. So we purchased our flat in '94. If I sold my flat, I could not live in Kensington, Chelsea. I'd be forced out of the area. You know, I'd have to actually probably move out of London.
I can stand in the middle of the street with empty car parking spaces all around me and no traffic coming. This place is now a bit of a dead zone. We have very little indication of who the owners are. And a lot of them are completely empty, so you can't go up and ask them who they are. They're actually just empty all the time.
Since 2003, something like that, yeah, since the last time anybody actually operated in it.
Buildings. Lots of empty buildings about and lots of homeless about, so it just makes sense.
Who bought this place, do you know?
Mr. Qatari,
Yeah, he's
apparently.
from Qatar. Apparently he's an ex-army general from Qatar.
And do you know how much he paid for this place?
£25 million probably.
Ludicrous. How many homeless people are there? How many empty buildings? It's just...
Do you have a demand as a group? Are you guys, like, organised at all?
Yeah, just to start housing people, basically, or we'll keep squatting these multi-million-pound buildings until something is sorted.
Occupy Belgravia.
Yeah. We will keep getting these places, and we will keep doing it until something is sorted out.
Who else is going to help them? Someone's got to do this.
One way of putting it is, this is not at all about housing. The buildings, they function as assets. You want those houses to be empty and unused, because then you can play with them. Can you imagine? I mean, these dark, empty buildings, and they are making money. So when people think, oh, poor investor, something went wrong, hell no.
My first reaction to learning about this phenomenon of vacant dwellings, I was pretty outraged. I remain outraged. In a human rights framework and through the UN system, it's very clear who is accountable. States. States are responsible. They have international human rights obligations. They sign treaties and they make commitments to the international community that they will uphold international human rights, which include the right to adequate housing.
That's a real block. Oh, shit.
But somebody banged hard on my door. And then I opened the front door, and there's just a blanket of black smoke. So I just closed the door, very calmly thinking, oh, there's a fire.
How is that possible?
It jumped up all the way along the flat.
How the fuck is that even possible?
And that was the beginning of the fire. We were still in there for 2.5 hours. That's the beginning. That's
So I came to the balcony, I ran to the back of the estate, I was like, what the hell's going on? I saw everything. From start to finish, I saw everything. I never slept for 2 days straight.
When I heard about it, I was in Canada and watching it unfold through Twitter, and then I started getting these details. Social housing estate, marginalized community set in a very rich, affluent borough. Allegations of poor housing conditions from before the fire.
Then I see an arm up to about here come through the smoke and kind of grab my wife, and then another arm on the other side come to kind of grab myself. And I said, how about my dog, my dog? The officer said, no, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to go. So I just looked at my dog, and it's just, amazing. My dog's my child. It's a 2-year-old beagle called Lewis Hamilton II, but he chose his own name. We gave him the options, and he liked Lewis, so he was, yeah. And then we were off into the darkness. And then I'm going down, and then I'm treading on things. I think, oh, they must have the water pipes already in the stairwell, but then the realization, no, I think it's people. I think I'm treading on bodies. I'm treading on something that is in my way. I was actually quite happy when they put cladding to make it pretty, make it look nice for the surrounding area. And somebody knew that they'd do it on the cheap.
There were these elements that seemed to be a bit of a global phenomenon, where you have a kind of vulnerable community. Most of the people in Grenfell are working, but they're working poor. Literally living side by side with incredibly wealthy people and an incredible amount of wealth. The tension between the two. And then watching this fire, it was like a physical representation of the displacement of a community. For me, that's the narrative of the world right now.
Look, I heard one of the councillors said, if you can't live in Notting Hill, then you shouldn't be in Notting Hill. What's all that about? Who the fuck is he to say something like that? Do you get where I'm coming from? So it's like people that have lived there all their lives are just being treated like a piece of shit, and it's wrong, isn't it? Makes me sick to want to talk about it. It brings tears to my eyes. You can't just disregard them like they're rubbish, like that fire. They just burnt them. It's like, that's like, this is the richest town in the borough, man. How can that happen? How?
Yeah, I've written lyrics. Me and my cousin have made a song for it.
Rest in peace to the fallen from Grenfell. My heart's with all of their families. We have to stay strong for Grenfell. We can't fall apart from this tragedy.
That community is special to me because it's well grown up. But people will be forced out.
They try and push us out. The community is strong. We put foot down. We stand together. Our voice sings loud. There ain't no
I guarantee I'll stay here. I'll fight with everything that I've got, and I'll fight for the other people.
Rest in peace to the fallen from Grenfell. My heart's with all of their families. We have to stay strong for Grenfell. We can't fall apart from this tragedy.
You have human rights obligations,
I agree.
and you can't let these investors and the financial system run amok on its own.
I say, wow, human rights. Every single person has a bunch of rights. And then I have a question for you. And that is, are you a legal scholar on human rights? You just
Yes,
okay.
yes,
So
that's
you have
right.
You have the instrumentality that is the law.
Exactly.
Because what I see is those with power, boy, can they deploy the law in ways that work for them. Stuff is happening, you know?
Yeah.
Prices go up in a neighborhood that is fixed, that's one thing. Everybody understands that part. And then they should understand that at that point, another actor might come into the picture. A monster that nobody can see, that nobody really understands, whose language is incomprehensible. And then they can maybe be curious and say, let me check out that monster. Who is this monster actually? What is happening here?
I don't believe that capitalism itself is hugely problematic. Is unbridled capitalism in an area that is a human right problematic? Yes. And I think that's what differentiates housing as a commodity from gold as a commodity. Gold is not a human right. Housing is.
This building, this whole complex has 1,700.
1,700? Wow.
Yeah, 1,700 units.
Wow.
The previous landlords, I think it was CNC. I think they did put information up to let us know that the complex was going to be sold.
Right.
But this is before Fairfield came in.
Do you know who is Fairfield? I don't know who they are.
From what I'm told, Fairfield is a subsidiary of, is it Blackstone?
Right, private equity firm.
Yes, exactly. They want to raise each apartment, they rent up to like $900 each. That is
By $900 each.
By $900.
And are you going to be able to pay that?
I don't know. I mean, I can definitely say next year there's no way. And where I'm going to go, I don't have a clue. I don't know. Right. And do you mind me asking, are you employed? Yes, I am. Yeah. And so what percentage of your income would this be, 25, 8? 90%. 90%. About 90, I'll say, all right. Yeah, 90%. Right. And do you consider that affordable for you? Oh, no, it's not. Yeah. If it goes to 3,400, then I have to be making 6 figures. I have to make at least $100,000 a year. Wow. There's days I'm optimistic, but then there's some days I'm more. I think human rights law hasn't caught up. And it worries me that I haven't quite yet found the language. Because people are now coming to me more and more and wanting me to talk about it. But how do we describe it in a way that will make sense, resonate, and really get at that issue? I'm looking for that. I feel a little bit desperate about that. So maybe I need to keep talking to the people in the financial field.
The first type of sign that I noticed when I came here was this very limited opening hours. They show their tenants that they are willing to meet them, and this is 3 hours per week on Tuesdays. So the D. Carnegie is the Swedish arm of the Blackstone company. So many signs that they actually don't bother much here. But it's a typical example of the type of estates they are interested in.
Yes.
So every time an apartment is vacant, they start this renovation, whereby they can increase the rents with roughly 50%. But these increased rents have no connection at all to the actual costs. why this is very, very profitable for them.
They don't really want to tie up all their money into those houses. So what they do is look for a large number of investors, and they create a security that says, we own these 10,000 homes. And you, as the investor, will get the rents and any capital gains on those properties. And if you buy 1% of security, you get 1% of that flow. That means Blackstone doesn't have its own money at risk to the same extent that it otherwise would be.
The house, you can buy, sell. The asset built on that house, you can sell it in less than a second. You can sell it 35 times in an hour if you are dealing with high-frequency trading.
There is a total disconnect between the person living in the home and the person owning the home. Owning the house is only a means to making money.
So how long have you been living?
I have been living here for 32 years. And I work, I'm a working class hero, as I call myself, and for fun, of course. But I work with handicapped people, and I work night shifts.
Right. If it became such that your rent was increased, would you be able to live here?
It would be very difficult, especially when you're a single parent. I mean, maybe I can work much more, but I think for me it will be difficult because I'm tired as it is. They did it over our heads, as we say in Swedish, our heads. So behind our backs in some.
Yes, yes.
And they didn't inform us very much.
Finance is very different from the bank. We all need banks, that's fine. That's, it sells something, we pay money for that. Finance is totally different. I always say finance sells something it does not have. And in doing that, it needs to actually invent brilliant instruments that allow it to invade other sectors. And that means that finance is basically an extractive sector. It might as well be mining. And the difference between finance as mining and the traditional bank is that the traditional bank wants the sons and daughters of its current clients to do better because it's commerce. Finance is like mining. Once it has extracted what it needs, it doesn't care what happens with the rest.
People are really proud. It's amazing, really proud of the very particular Swedish housing system. And I can see why as I'm learning a little bit more. It's like it's a unique system and it's very protective of the people. And so to bring an outsider in this, and they're known as, excuse the expression, but vultures to some degree, to bring them in, I find I'm surprised that Stockholm or Sweden would do that, because you have such a special system. I would think you'd want to protect it.
And to me, just if you look at the situation, that is done. And to me, it's not realistic to change the situation and to buy them back. I think that's impossible.
Right.
To me, if you compare with the tools, maybe that's a political issue, but it's already done.
When you look at the political classes, which I hold responsible in part for a lot of the extremes that we have reached in terms of extracting value so that all our governments now are poorer than they were in the 1980s when this sort of begins. The value of all real estate that functions as an asset is $217 trillion. That's more than global GDP of all the countries in the world, of all the economies in the world. So you know that you're dealing with something that exits the domain of what we would call money. They're highly camouflaged extractions because they come in the shape of extraordinarily complex instruments that nobody who's not in that business can understand. The political classes, instead of doing their homework and saying, aha, we've left traditional banking, we could all understand that, something else has happened. It's so complex that we delegate to the experts. Who are the experts? It's the financial sector itself.
Goodbye, you. I'll see you and Ryan après l'école. Come on, Bean. Come on. Come on.
We're the largest real estate private equity firm in the world. We've got investments in people around the globe. But by keeping our business entrepreneurial, we can move very, very quickly.
John Gray is the global head of real estate for Blackstone Group, which is the world's largest private equity manager.
So one of the markets you went into was single-family homes, and I know you have a big portfolio. Was it 50,000 or?
Yes, 50,000.
Tell us about that.
So
how do you even find 50,000 homes to buy?
You need a global financial crisis for that to occur. You're sitting around in 2011, you're saying, where is there a large pool of assets that are going to be sold by financial institutions at big discounts to underlying replacement costs? And it was pretty obvious it was single-family homes. Let's spend $25,000 or so fixing them up, and then let's rent them out and make income-producing assets out of them, like an apartment business, but just not in one large complex. But if we do it in enough scale...
I was just poking around, trying to get my head around some of the stuff around hedge funds and buying up distressed mortgages and all of that. And I went onto the Blackstone website. I've worked with Bruce for more than 20 years. He's an advocate and thinks so differently than anyone I know.
So basically buy up the whole neighborhood, gentrify the whole thing, and double or triple the value of the real estate just because you've gentrified the neighborhood and forced everybody else out. Right?
And makes no mention of people, really, at least by minute 16 and a half, he hasn't mentioned like the people that would be living in those places. It's like a whole other world. I definitely want to meet with him.
We own properties around the globe. We buy these investments on behalf of our
A company like Blackstone or any of the big financial enterprises were the big winners in the crisis. They were the big winners in the housing market. They were also the big winners in the equity markets. It was as if the U.S. government, rather than helping the homeowners who were losing their homes, actually sided with the banks, encouraged foreclosures to clean up the books, gave the money to hedge funds and private equity firms, who then bought the distressed assets to make money. So it is the way that the 2008 crisis has played an important role in increasing wealth inequality in the United States and in other countries that have been afflicted by the crisis.
It doesn't totally work as a statement yet. Let me give you a snapshot of the new world of housing, and while I do so, I urge you to reflect on the images behind me.
Right.
Just like that?
Yeah.
Like, I can't remember how we did it with the homelessness report, but I remember when I was reading my statement, I did have that, if a pin dropped, we would have heard it in the room. And that's what I need, because, you know, half the time they're on their Blackberries and not paying attention.
Yeah.
Their iPhones, I suppose, now.
You know, I mean, homelessness is a bit different too. You know, we were seeing images of people, and part of the problem then is that when you're describing the stuff that's supposed to be shocking, it's all cranes and buildings and glass and stuff, and so you're not moved in the same way.
Distinguished delegates, we are living in a new world, a world in which the housing sector has been transformed by global corporate financial actors and massive amounts of excess global capital.
Global residential real estate is now valued at $163 trillion, more than twice the world's total GDP. Housing has been financialized, valued as a commodity rather than a human dwelling. What I am suggesting is a significant change away from the commodification of housing in order to retrieve what housing means in terms of human dignity and security as a lived experience, as a human right. Thank you.
Well, we're walking through the new buildings, the new estate, which is now called Elephant Park, which replaces the Haygate estate, where I used to live. A bit empty feeling.
Like, look, so many, all of them empty.
Yeah. The flats, many of the homes in this part of the development were sold in Hong Kong and Singapore. When they're sold overseas, they're not necessarily sold for people to live in. They're sold as investments.
Welcome to my nightmare. This is, cell block 1. This is my place. We've had no heat all through April, no hot water all through April. There's water leaking underneath the sink. It's just, you know, I need a whole new window because the windows don't close, they don't match. New owners have taken over. We haven't met them, we haven't seen them, we don't know anything about them. It could be Frosty the Snowman for all I know. And they're trying everything to evict us.
Hay una persona como un abogado. Tu contrato está no bien. Tu contrato está fallo. 2017 de enero ha dejado echar todo familia y último y uno quedé solo yo, mi familia.
Come out and show you the cameras. We got one here in the back. If you come out here and you look up to your top right-hand shoulder, up in the corner, you'll see another camera. And out here on the porch, you have the other camera right behind you. What is this, a fucking prison? I've never had to live like this. I just don't know what to do anymore. And without this, you know, I'll be out on the street with the heavens pissing on me.
Yo una persona, una familia llora mucho. ¿Por qué? Él también vive aquí 20 años.
Wouldn't like to sort of romanticize what it was like before.
Right.
But it was an ordinary council estate, lots of ordinary families in it. And I suppose at this time of day, most of them would have been off to work and off to school and off to college and so on.
This is where I grew up, you know? And, I'll